What's up, everyone? Today is October 30th of 2022. The World Series is well underway. This year is the 118th edition of the Fall Classic. Game 1, Game 2, both in the books. Game 3 coming up tomorrow. Well, in this video, I want to talk about the first two games and two particularly interesting synchronicities, or rituals, if you will, regarding both of those games. We start with Game 1, which took place on October 28th. On that same date, legendary Georgia Bulldogs head coach Vince Dooley passed away at the age of 90. Dooley led the Bulldogs to the 1980 National Championship, which was Georgia's first national title. What stood out about this is that 1980 is the first year that the Philadelphia Phillies won the World Series. And the Philadelphia Phillies are once again in the World Series this season. They're going up against the Houston Astros, who are in their fourth World Series in the past 6 seasons. En route to get to the World Series, the Philadelphia Phillies had to defeat the defending champion Atlanta Braves, who are from the state of Georgia, which again is where Vince Dooley passed away. Now, the Georgia Bulldogs won their second national championship just this past January, a game which Dooley even attended. So we're going to talk about how Vince Dooley is connected to the numerology of the Philadelphia Phillies. In the second part of this video, we're going to take a close look at a strange home run that was hit in yesterday's Game 2. And I say strange because immediately I noticed several numerical alignments with this, and when I investigated the numerology of the man who hit this home run, a very strong eclipse riddle fell into focus. As Alex Bregman, who now plays for the Houston Astros, was born in the city of Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is the city that sits closest to the center of the path of the 2023 annular eclipse. And as it turns out, there's a massive riddle with this guy connected to Game 2. First, let's talk about Vince Dooley, who passed away on a date with primary numerology of 80, 10 plus 28 plus 20 plus 22. Again, it was the year 80 in which he led the Georgia Bulldogs to their first ever national championship. In the language of Gematria, Georgia Bulldogs sums to 80 in the reverse reduction method. In this method, the alphabetic order is flipped around backwards so that Z is 1 and Y is 2, and every double-digit number is reduced to a single digit. That's called reduction or Pythagorean numerology. And here we see that Georgia Bulldogs equals 80. Again, 80, also the year that the Philadelphia Phillies won their first World Series. Notice how Georgia Bulldogs is a supermatch with the phrase ritual sacrifice through the numbers 154, 251, and 73. Is it possible that a 90-year-old man was sacrificed on this date? I'm not sure. That's not for me to judge. But the reason there was a big death on the first day of this World Series is because, once again, this is the 118th edition of the World Series. In a highly significant cipher I teach called Latin, formerly called Jewish, on my website, gematrinator.com, the words death and homicide both have a value of 118. Now, several years ago, I did a huge decode on the death or potential homicide of 2 rock stars, Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington. Chris Cornell was born on the date of the moon landing, and Chester Bennington would go on to die on his best friend's birthday on July 20th, also the same day as the moon landing. Well, when you write out moon landing, you get an alphabetic ordinal value of 118. And if you measure from the birthdays of Chester Bennington to Chris Cornell, you get exactly 11 years and 8 months. It's possible it might be 8 years, 11 days. I might have that mixed up. Let me double check. Chris Cornell was July 20th of 64, and Chester Bennington was March 20th of 76. Well, if you measure from those dates, indeed, it is 11 years and 8 months. So this is all part of this moon landing riddle. And think about the other team in the World Series this year, the Houston Astros. Astros, like astrology. This is a team that's themed with space travel. And ever since space travel became more of a public market with companies like SpaceX and Jeff Bezos's rockets going into outer space, all of a sudden we've seen the Astros dominate the American League. So the first ever moon landing was done by Apollo 11. Notice how Apollo 11 has the matching 53 Gematria with moon landing. And 2022 is 53 years after the moon landing. Notice how the state of Georgia has overlap with moon and moon landing in multiple ciphers. So let's check this out. Vince Dooley, born on September 4th of 1932, means that when he passed away, he was 90 years and 54 days old. Well, check out the Gematria of Phillies, who won Game 1 of the World Series on that same date he passed away. Phillies equals 90 and 54. In this game, they beat future Hall of Famer Justin Verlander, who threw a total of 90 pitches on the night, 54 of which coming in the last 2 innings when the Phillies scored most of their runs. 90 and 54, however, is also the values of the moon in Gematria. The moon equals 90 and 54. And again, this all connected to the moon landing. The name Vince Dooley in Gematria has reduction values of 57 and 51. These are the same 2 numbers that show up when you write out the word moon, 57 and 51. Measuring from Dooley's date of birth to the date he died, notice he was on an exact lunar count. He was exactly 1,115 lunar phases on the date he died. This connects us to the number 115, which is the reverse and Latin value of killing, sums to 115. Recall how earlier this year, a famous landmark in the state of Georgia, the Georgia Guidestones, were destroyed on July 6th, or 7/6, which was former President George Bush's 76th birthday. Think of it, his first name was George, like Georgia. Well, if you measure from the date the Guidestones were destroyed to the date of Dooley's death, it was even 115 days. Game 1 was won by the Phillies in the 10th inning by a player named JT Realmuto. And notice how JT wears number 10. And his first name begins with the 10th letter. Well, if you add his number 10 to the name Realmuto, notice how you get a Gematria value of 115. He was the first catcher to hit an extra innings home run in the World Series since Carlton Fisk. The name Fisk equals 115. Check out the primary numerology of the date of the moon landing. 7 plus 20 plus 19 plus 69 gives us 115. That moon landing occurred on July 20th, or 7/20. And in the Fibonacci cipher, which we will cover at length in the next decode, the name Vince Dooley equals 720, like the date of the moon landing. In fact, the Phillies came back from 5 runs down in this game to win. Notice how 5 equals 720. This moon landing date is also the date that leaves 201 days on the calendar. Philadelphia equals 201 with capital letters. The word moon also 21. The name Vince Dooley connects to 201 with base conversions. So in the alphabetic order, his name is 129. And 129 is the octal of 201. Or actually, 201 is the octal of 129. That's a base 8 conversion. So consider this, Apollo 11, and this connects us to the city of Philadelphia. Philadelphia equals 11 in Gematria. Of course, it's 101, but in numerology, the 0 is ignored, giving us 11. In reduction, Philadelphia equals 65. This game was played in Minute Maid Park, which equals 65. And the score of Game 1 was Philadelphia 6, Houston 5. I noticed also the year 1980, which connects the Bulldogs championship to the Phillies, also gives us this 65. One thing I neglected to point out in my post is that both Philadelphia and Minute Maid Park both have Gematria of 223 in the reverse alphabetic order, and this is the Hebrew value for the words the moon. A very significant number connected to the eclipse cycle. The Saros, which allows us to predict the next eclipses, separated by 223 lunar phases. And we will talk about eclipses at length in the next part of this decode, where we talk about Alex Bregman and how this event connects to the two great American total solar eclipses that create an X over the United States. But also this very significant eclipse that occurs in October of 2023. I might have closed that page. So here's a quick glimpse. October 14th of 2023. And once again, this annular eclipse passes directly over the city of Albuquerque, which is where Alex Bregman is from. And Alex Bregman's home run made the game 5-0, and this was the second straight game that the Astros held a 5-0 lead. This man wears number 2, which is a backwards 5. And when he hit this home run, I looked at the clock and I even noticed that it was 50 minutes after the hour. So there were a lot of 5s here. We'll check out the Gematria of Albuquerque. In reduction, Albuquerque sums to 50. Well, if you measure from the date of Game 2, when Alex Bregman hit this home run, to the date of the October 2023 eclipse, notice how it was exactly 50 weeks before. So let's talk about Fibonacci numbers for a second. By the way, Alex Bregman has 140 career home runs, just for the record. So, on the date that he hit his home run last night, Alex Bregman was 10,440 days old. And I noticed right away that this connected to the numerology of the game's date. If you multiply all the digits in that date, except of course 0, you get a product of 144. And not only was this his age on the date, but the name Alexander Bregman sums to 144 in the standard alphabetical order. In another significant cipher I teach called Standard, formerly English Extended, on gematrinator.com, the final score of this game, 5-2, which is very important. We'll talk a lot about this. 5-2 sums to 1440. Now, you may be thinking, well, he's called Alex Bregman, not Alexander Bregman. But consider this. The number 144 is a Fibonacci number, and it's the 12th Fibonacci number. It's also the 12th square number. And his common name, Alex Bregman, sums to 102, a lot like the number 12 in numerology. So, by the way, 5-2, notice how you have double Gematria of 45? The starting pitcher for the Phillies wears number 45. That was Zach Wheeler last night. The big 45 on his back, connecting to the final score. Remember in the 9th inning, the Philadelphia Phillies had to commit an error on a routine play in order to allow that second run to score for Philadelphia. So Alex Bregman recently announced the birth of his son. And we're talking about Fibonacci numbers with this 144 connection. Well, the Fibonacci number that precedes 144 in the sequence is 89. Now, Alex Bregman's son was born on August 2nd, and if you watch my last live stream, I talked a lot about August 2nd and how it connects to total eclipses. So this means that measuring from August 2nd, the birth of this guy's son, to the date of the game was a span of 89 days. And 89 is another Fibonacci number. His son's name is Alex Bregman. And check out how Alex Bregman equals 52, just like the score of this game. 5-2, Houston. The date of his birth, August 2nd, had primary numerology of 52. Now, August 2nd was the same date that legendary baseball broadcaster Vince Scully passed away. August 2nd. And notice how the name Vince Scully sums to 52. So we're talking about Fibonacci ciphers, or Fibonacci numbers in particular. And there is a cipher in Gematria called Fibonacci, which uses the first 13 Fibonacci numbers in each direction. And notice how the name Alex sums to 152 in this cipher. Well, Alex was 152 days before his birthday for last night's game, a number which has that 52 in it. Furthermore, his last name Bregman sums to 520 in this Fibonacci method. Now again, last night's game finished 5-2. And he wears number 2, which is a reflected 5. His last name begins with a B, which is the second letter. His 5th inning 2-run home run in Game 2 last night, which again, he hit exactly 50 minutes after the hour, made it 5-0 Astros, the second straight night that they held that score. Now, the 5th triangular number is 15, and Bregman hit his 15th postseason home run last night. It was also his 155th career home run overall. And notice how the name Alex is a super match with the number 5. And again, this was all 50 weeks exactly before the eclipse that passes over his hometown. So we talked a lot about 5-2 and 52. So if you write out the number 52 as it's spelled, you get a value of 124. The last total solar eclipse to occur was on December 4th, the date written 12/4. And this past week, we had a solar eclipse from Saros number 124. Last night's game was 12 weeks and 4 days after Alex Bregman announced the birth of his son on August 2nd. And notice how his son's name, Alex Bregman, equals 124. And Alex Bregman was born 124 days before the date 12/4, December 4th. And I had to laugh when I saw the name of his wife. Alex Bregman married a woman named Reagan. So this woman is now named Reagan Bregman, which is just really fun to say. But check out the date of their wedding. This really tripped me out. Here's a look at the English Sumerian method, which is the alphabetic order multiplied by 6, which is the most significant number connected to time. And in this method, Alex Bregman equals 612. And quite often on this channel, I talk about the Bible verse, Revelation 6:12. This is the one verse that mentions both a solar and a lunar eclipse in the Bible, the sun becoming black the moon becoming red. Well, Alex Bregman got married to his wife on December 6th, the date written 6/12 internationally. And when you measure from that date to the two great American eclipses, you get 1,204 days and 3 years and 124 days. On top of that, it was also 1,042 days before the eclipse over his hometown of Albuquerque. So the number 124, just so significant to all of this. But of course, there's more. Notice how Alex Bregman was born on March 30th, the date written 330, which in numerology represents the number 33. Last night's game fell a span of 330 days after that last total solar eclipse on 12/4. It was also 30 weeks and 3 days after his birthday. And in Gematria, the name Bregman sums to 33. Just like the word eclipse sums to 33. Notice how the name Bregman also equals 129. Yesterday's game was on October 29th, the date written 10/29. In fact, 129 is also the ordinal value of the number 99. And if you measure from his wedding, the Bregman wedding, to the date of last night's game, it was exactly a span of 99 weeks. So not only was Alex Bregman born on this 3/3 date, but he was also born in the year 1994. Well, in standard Gematria, total solar eclipse has this value of 994. And if we crack open the Fibonacci cipher again, the Fibonacci number, look at his full name, Alexander David Bregman, sums to 994. Now, if we look back at this standard cipher, we get a 1399. This is the 222nd prime number, and in this same cipher, the word eclipse equals 222. Speaking of this English standard cipher, we talked about how his son was born on the same day that Vince Scully died, August 2nd. The name Scully has Gematria of 1163, and measuring from last night's game with Bregman's home run to the next Great American Eclipse, which passes near Houston, it's 1 year and 163 days. And the reason this is so important is because 1163 is the 192nd prime number. And 192 is the Latin value of eclipse. Last night's game, 5-2, also gives us that 192. Last night's game was the Astros' 74th win in postseason history for the team. I want to take a look at a cipher called Satanic Gematria. This method begins at the number 36, as 666 is the 36th triangular number. And in this method, the name Alexander Bregman sums to 704. This is the Latin value of total solar eclipse. 704. Again, this is the Astros' 74th postseason victory. Notice how total solar eclipse equals 202 ordinal. Alex Bregman equals 202 with capital letters. And he got married just a week before the 2020 total solar eclipse. The name of his wife, Reagan Howard, I'm sure this was an arranged marriage of some sort. Reagan Howard equals 690. Her last name, Howard, equals 69. These are eclipse numbers. Eclipse equals 69 ordinal. Eclipse the sun, 69 reduction. And check out the name of their son. I don't even think it's listed here. Oh, this is the wrong article. That would be why. Their son's name is Knox Samuel Bregman. And check this out. Knox Samuel Bregman equals 69. The sun is said to be 93 million miles away on average. His name also sums to 9/11 in Latin, and 9/11 is the Greek value of total eclipse. So even I feel dizzy after that one, but this is the kind of thing they do in the World Series, is these massive rituals. You typically will not see something like this during the regular season. An alignment this huge. I mean, this has so much to do with the date that he was drafted, the date he was born, and so on. When they say the stars align, they're really not kidding, are they? All right, everyone. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.